Some people are very dependent on the decisions of public authorities of one kind or another for the essentials of life. For example, the NHS for health treatment, the Department of Work and Pensions for disability benefits, or the council for a roof over their heads. If they don't know they can challenge these kinds of decisions, they'll be very vulnerable to losing out if the authority gets the law wrong. We should all know that we have such rights and we can challenge and disagree with authority, but some people have much more to lose than others if they don't know.
They keep saying every child matters, but I don't think so, because some kids are treated differently from others.
You see a lot about autism out there in the community, but Bryn is, he's non-verbal, he's got very high level learning disabilities, so he's kind of more severely affected by autism than, you know, the average. And it's been a journey, it's been a real journey.
I've got Nicholas, who's just turned 18 in June. He's physically and mentally disabled, he's a wheelchair user. And I've got Reese, another son, he's 13 and he's autistic and behaviour problems.
Our daughter's condition, she was the 8th case recorded in the world and only the 3rd case recorded in Britain when she was born. It looks like the other children, their health problems connected with it, they just haven't made it.
My son has autism. I think that throws different things into the mix, and it's been difficult sometimes to navigate systems, access services, access support.
We just have to make do with what we have, trying to cut down on cost and just try my best as a mother. As long as my daughter's comfortable and we've got a roof over our head, yeah, that's it.
The help I get at the moment, the new social workers want to cut the hours down a bit, but I don't really want that to happen.
I can't remember when there's been a year where there hasn't been cutbacks. And if the council says something, people will accept it, not knowing. And that's the big breakdown, that if you don't know your rights, you don't know how to fight it.
I've practiced law in the social care field for over 25 years. I found that people don't know that they have rights, or, as importantly, how to use them. This is where public legal education comes in. But how do you do public legal education in a way that can be as effective as it can be? We've been delivering traditional training courses, drafting leaflets, putting material on websites for years. But our experience has been that even when you get really enthusiastic feedback, it often doesn't turn into action. The idea behind Ripple was to try and do things differently.
We're about working with our community to make the law accessible to the people who are kind of on the edge of society and need its protection most. We go out of our way to seek those people out because many of them don't know that they've got legal rights that would protect them.
And it's so unfair, you know, that if you're a mouse like I might have been 30 years ago, that you get trodden on and you don't know what your rights are.
That's the fundamental thing, people don't know what their rights are.
We thought that the 3 important things to try in our new approach were, firstly, to try and avoid people feeling isolated with a problem, and then making sure that legal training was directly relevant to tackling the right issues for them, and then lastly, identifying practical steps to try and use that knowledge to address the problem that they're facing.
We worked with 7 groups under the Ripple project, and with each we tried to focus on a public legal education issue that was particularly important and relevant for that group.
What was absolutely critical was that we made sure we tailored the training on offer to the right issues, the real everyday problems that people were facing, and not the issues that we were interesting to us as lawyers. We had some idea of the common problems that arise in social care, but it's the people actually experiencing those problems who are best placed to properly explain the challenges that they face. We started with what we knew and looking for patterns of problems in our casework, and we also talked to advocates who would know from their experience. But when we had established a group around a particular issue, we also then listened to what they had to say about their experiences.
What's unique about it is that it values the parents and the carer's own experience. It's very much based on that, but it injects the knowledge and the underpinning understanding. I can go to lots of carers groups, we don't get that. And I value that because that's empowerment. That is really understanding the law and feeling a bit more ownership of it.
It was explained straight away and we were like, oh okay, we didn't know some of these legal things. We didn't know, nobody knew about the health check. Even the parents who have 18-year-olds, nobody knew you could get this health check from the GP at all.
I felt it was an opportunity to speak to somebody who is willing. I mean, I was going to meet somebody who would listen to me, who understands what policy making is all about. So I know change is not immediate, but we could start from somewhere.
So it wasn't all about the legislation, it was around how we could use that information, and that I think that was always key for us, because Emma always spoke in a way that we could access and understand, and very open to any questions, and always said if you don't understand anything then please ask.
We could ask questions, we could receive the corresponding answers straight away. So that was very good, that was.
What the groups had was a solicitor who was specialised in the very area of law that they needed help with. And so if somebody was suddenly in the middle of a meeting was asking a question about something else, then you, because that was your area of specialism, could deal with that immediately. I think that was very important. That degree of responsiveness was really, really important aspect of the project.
Sometimes when a group had been formed to tackle a specific issue, during the course of group work we identified another issue that was also affecting group members, and it was something that we hadn't anticipated working on. One example of this would be with a group formed to tackle the potential closure of a residential respite facility, where the issue that we were planning to deal with the group was around consultation rights in relation to that consultation. We found during the course of working with the group that actually many of the family members, the relatives of group members, hadn't had recent care needs assessments, or where they had had care needs assessments, the quality of those was poor. Group members didn't feel that the needs of their loved ones had been properly reflected in the assessments. And additionally, the group members hadn't had carers assessments or had never been asked, how their caring role impacted on them. So when we became aware of this additional issue, what we were able to do was to provide public legal education to the group around assessment and support planning issues, so that they could get better assessments for their loved ones, their needs could be properly represented. And actually this fed straight back into the original issue around the consultation, because the council had been saying that the respite facility was underused, underoccupied, and this was a key reason for the proposal to close. Well, we were then able to make arguments that part of the underuse, underoccupation was that the needs of vulnerable disabled people hadn't been assessed properly in the first place.
And they've got the information that you haven't got that's legal. And knowing your legal rights sometimes is half of the battle, because it's like fighting with one arm behind your back. If the council have got all the information but they're not going to give it to you.
Like when we discussed that, what was going on, what we'd just been told when we were discussing it amongst ourselves, I think we were all miffed. Miffed, because we didn't know none of it. We didn't know any of this stuff. Do you know what I mean? And we were grateful that we've been told.
Most of them, their attitude is, if only I knew about this 10 years ago. That's what they commonly say.
I think some families are very good at portraying that they're managing and they're coping, because they're sometimes fearful of actually sharing how they feel and how difficult things are for repercussions from other areas in services. And I think that's really sad, because I think, as a family we should be able to share the struggles and the difficulties.
How they explained the Ripple project was that actually it could be a group of people coming together around common themes that they could unpick and talk to people who had the right knowledge, so Emma in this case, around legal rights, education, status and actions if there were any. So it created kind of a forum where there was almost no pressure.
I feel like you're not alone. That's the worst thing. As a special needs parent, you feel that you can be so isolated.
Bringing people together, it's a plus, because I think people tend to feel a bit relaxed, but as the day goes, they have this confidence to speak out and they feel nobody's going to judge them, and people around them are people who understand.
But everybody had an equally difficult experience. So in a way, that was nice for me. You don't want anyone else to have had a bad time, but it just is a bit of a relief sometimes to say, oh, you know, this happens.
So what is it about working in a group that makes a difference? We thought it would help people feel less isolated and more confident to act. But we also found that it encouraged the development of wider networks. It seems that the experience of working together encouraged sharing outside of the group.
I just think, you know, information is key, and also talking to other parents. It's not all about the legislation and the law. It's about those lived experiences and listening to other families and how they've managed it.
You're always looking to find the other parents that are in the same boat, share stories, find out. But I'm also someone who wants to make it better for the other people that are going to come. Because I feel like every time, as the young people are leaving school, there's a new wave of parents and families going through the same thing, and a new wave of children and young people. So anything where I can help to get improving, and I had a feeling that that's what this was about as well. It was kind of understanding the process of transition, sharing what it's been like for us, but also understanding maybe how we can at some point make things better.
Working as a group can also mean that underlying systemic legal errors come to light, and that means that they can be tackled, and that has a more fundamental impact.
As they might think they could get picked on by the council, but if you're a group, it's a joint effort.
I really appreciated having the other parents there. So there was, to me, it worked on the two levels, that we could actually say, this is what's happened to me, this is what's happened to me. It was all a little bit different, but also a lot of overlap. But having someone there from the law centre felt really different, because I've been to carers groups before and felt in a way a little bit frustrated, because we're sharing experiences, but it doesn't get us anywhere, if you know what I mean. Nothing much clear comes out of that. Whereas I felt that's what came in from this. We had Emma who could talk us through, this is what should happen, this is what you can do. And even what I like about it is that if it didn't sink in on the day, you've got the notes. But the notes aren't just a set of pieces of paper, they're actually something you know you've been to a meeting about and talked about, so they mean a bit more to you. So I personally really valued that bit of it, because for me it's always, it's great to complain and it's great to share, but actually we want to make things better and we want to know what we can do and how things actually work.
For knowledge to be useful knowledge, you need to know how to use it. With legal knowledge, part of that is just knowing how to find the right kind of legal help when you need it. In public legal education, it just isn't about trying to turn everyone into a lawyer. So we wanted to be sure that we helped each of the groups work out what practical action they wanted to take using their legal rights. And we also tried to offer a positive experience of working with a specialist lawyer.
A lot of the families and young adults that I work with, they have social care needs, they might have health needs, and we found that the Care Act wasn't really being followed and adhered to. So how we used the Ripple project was to understand actually that legal framework and how to work through it and what to do when things go wrong.
Obviously we do need to name acts and legislation, but it's not just about that. It's about them having the tools then to be able to use that legislation in a way that lends itself for them to be able to potentially challenge and access a service.
We've got kind of the Care Act, an accessible version I would say, where it breaks down into what we should be looking for, which is very different from having the Care Act and trying to unpick it. Yeah, and the same with annual health checks. You know, we've developed you know, what annual health checks are, eligibility, what actually should include, and actually what to do when they go wrong, which is the difference.
We came to appreciate from working with advocates at Grapevine and with group members that it wasn't just that many people didn't know about annual health checks. In fact, the problems ran much deeper than that. The current directions governing eligibility for annual health checks were not being properly applied. Eligible persons were not accessing these, and it appeared that they weren't being added to relevant registers, or they might have been gate kept out based on their level of disability or the nature of their contact with councils. it seemed to us that there was widespread misunderstanding of the eligibility criteria.
We knew that the stories that we were hearing, people weren't having annual health checks and they weren't being done properly, they weren't being invited for them. So we knew that there was an issue. So we decided to form the Ripple group where we could work preventatively. So we targeted the parents of young people to give them the legal education of their rights of their children, so that they could actually action that.
We worked with our groups to ensure that they understood the correct eligibility criteria for annual health checks so that they could request that their relatives were added to the annual health check registers.
With the annual health check Ripple group, the resources that I had and because we've got a pack now that's kind of start to finish, I took them to a conference that was for parents and professionals around transition. So actually, ordinarily I would stand up and talk about annual health checks and maybe most people would kind of go okay, but now I've got the legal framework around annual health checks, and look, we also got a letter to say you can request it. We can tell you which GPs are signed up and we can tell you what should be in it, and if you don't get it, this is what you should do.
With the group that's trying to protect a day centre from closure, we had to actually threaten legal action against the council to try and get a proper consultation on the changes it was proposing. 4 members of the group decided they wanted to take this on, and so we applied for legal aid, which was granted, and we sent a formal legal letter to the council. Their response was positive, and so we didn't actually have to go to court. But the point is that the group members knew that that option was there and knew what practical steps to take to make it happen.
Well, it is safety in numbers, and basically you feel that you can achieve more as a group than you would ever be able to do as an individual.
Bringing groups of individuals affected by shared problems has enabled some to engage with authorities in a coordinated way, and maybe at a higher level than it would have been possible for individual members to have done. For example, our respite group were able to talk to the council's lead commissioner. We think this is because there's something powerful about many voices saying together something isn't working, something isn't right.
I was happy being there because since it's about policy changes and making, I felt it was something we could come together. I could come together with other parents to see how we can influence changes if possible, rather than accepting everything thrown at us.
I think the Ripple group has enabled parents to be able to challenge decisions more effectively, understand the processes and what the legal aspect of it is really. And it's not good enough to just be told, oh, we don't do that or we can't do that. Well, you know, the legislation is there that is clearly outlined to highlight what should and shouldn't happen. And I think it's really empowered a lot of the parents in the group to be able to challenge decisions more effectively and in a manner that maybe lends itself better for professionals to work with us, because we're not just parents, we're people in our own right, and we have, you know, capacity to be able to challenge things.
We're at this point now where we are just getting assessments together, and we know who we want to support him, and we know how we want it roughly to go. And I feel a little bit more empowered in that if commissioners are coming back and steering me or whatever, I feel I know what our rights are a bit more, that well-being covers everything. So he needs to be getting out, he might need he will need 2-to-1 support. That's extra funding we'll be battling for, and it's the amount of that could be important to us and to him. And that well-being, understanding that it covers his going out, it covers everything equally. They can't bamboozle us with. So I feel a bit more informed, and I also feel like if I now know the process. I always knew I could complain, but now I kind of know about judicial review as something we hope never to get to, but it's just empowering to know, really.
I know that families have taken their individual cases forward, so actually what that will then hopefully do is address those issues.
I need time out for myself, I need to rest, I need to get on with my chores, I need to go out. I haven't got no time to do any of that. I have come down to the Law Centre now and I have asked for the help of what I can do about the hours.
Had I not have accessed the Ripple group, I may have always perceived that we didn't meet the criteria, and from that, because I have contact with other parents through friendships or groups that I do, I am now able to share that.
If I'd have directed those families individually to the Law Centre, I don't think they would have ever have gone.
What this project has allowed us to do is to really do what law centres say they do, which is to share our knowledge of the law with the community.
We were quite taken aback by the enthusiasm of people. They were very receptive to this. There was a real thirst for knowledge, and what we found was with some people, the more information we gave them, the more they wanted.
The aim was never that people should become lawyers themselves and know all the ins and outs of social care law, and that's quite a complicated area of law. The main impact has been, I think, that people now know that they have legal rights and how to find out more about them and how to use them. This kind of work, we found, can have a preventative impact as well, in two ways, I think. First, for example, if someone knows how a social care assessment is supposed to work, they've got a better chance of getting a good assessment which identifies their needs. And that's in everyone's interest. Trying to put something right after the event takes council time and council money, particularly if it ends up in the courts. Secondly, it also means that we're more likely to pick up the underlying systematic cause of a shared problem. And if that can be tackled, it can prevent it reoccurring time and time again with others.
You're so used to fighting for everything for your child that to be told that you have legal rights as well doesn't really come as that much of a surprise. What comes as a surprise is more what sort of legal rights you've got. Everybody knows you've got legal rights in certain things, but the fact that you can go, oh, hang on a minute, we have got somewhere to go if we can't get this. None of us knew that we could come here to ask for help. You know, so it's nice to know that it's not just medical professionals and family fighting your corner. It's other people as well. It's other professionals in other professions are fighting your corner as well, and it's nice to know that.
I do think that the work of the Ripple Group, it's not just a one-hit wonder. It's not just a workshop that you can attend and find something out. It's about using that information maybe in the future. It may be something that you might not need at this point in time, but there may be something coming up, and things change all the time, and you know, budget cuts are left, right and centre, and services are closing, or criteria is narrowing, or maybe there's just a blanket policy at a local level and it's not necessarily the legislation. So I think these sorts of groups are really informative to empower families to be able to challenge decisions, especially in our current climate of budget cuts.
We are aware that this work has rippled out, in that group members and organisations we've worked with have told us that they've shared this learning socially and through their wider community networks.
I've spoken to my cousin about it, I've spoken to my sister about it, I spoke to one of the mothers at school about it. Well, we've discussed it because there's been another couple of mums that came in, and we were talking to them about it, and even they were miffed because they didn't know.
There's a friend of mine who's in a really difficult situation at the minute, in what is being offered to her isn't what it could be, and I was able to say, well, you've got the Law Centre, and I know also there's Health Watch and there's other organisations she can contact, but I was able to say that.
I've really valued it, and I really think that actually, yeah, it's been a real success, and I'd like it to continue in more areas, and working alongside the Law Centre has just given me that, it's given me as a worker that confidence to actually go out to families and say, no, this is your right.
I think the benefit of working or one of the benefits of working this way is that if you want to work on the right issues for a community, then this is the way to go about it. So I think it enables you to work as a better community lawyer than just sitting in your office and waiting for the phone to ring.
I'm hoping that things are going to go as well as we can get for him, but I do feel like I know where to go, and I think sometimes just knowing that just empowers you a bit more, doesn't it?
They've made a key difference for me in that health project, really, because they've given us the legal framework which gives it that bit more evidence and oomph, if I can say that.
It's enabled families to think bigger and think wider and maybe plan a little bit more for the future.
It might not happen immediately, but the hope is that if we keep speaking, definitely some people will listen.
I think knowledge is power, and that's what it gives us. In the old days, we never used to know where to go to get help. And sometimes that help's so vital.
This way of working has really made me think about the way I give advice to clients and has made me realise that actually even the act of giving advice is in itself, it's providing public legal education to those clients, and if it's then passed on that knowledge, that information to their friends, to their relatives, to others in the same circumstances. So I think it's made me think that in the way we give advice, we're not just providing advice to clients, we're consciously imparting knowledge to them, we're providing them with tools to understand their legal rights and to help them use them, yes, in that particular case where you're advising them, but also in the future.
Really, almost for the first time, what we've built is a genuine partnership with groups of people in our community in the way that we make the law accessible to them. For me, that's quite transformational. I think we've said we're working with communities in partnership in the past, but I don't think we've been able to do it before in a way that gets the kind of results that we can see are possible through this way of working.
For me, it means a lot. For me, it means a lot because it was something I didn't know I had out there. It means quite a lot, especially having 2 special needs children.
I think it's a really good way of doing things because actually I think all of us parents in there, I think we're mainly parents, felt that we've got very direct experience, you build up a lot of knowledge on the very area that you're, the young person, whoever you're supporting. And I think bringing people together with that, but with the added input of someone who can come with that kind of background knowledge, I think it really works well.
For me, it's about giving law back to the community.